He knows me well. That was quite the introduction. Thank you. So I'm Simone, and I'm going to talk to you about my recently completed PhD that was funded by the TMRN and the College of Medicine at the University of Galway. And the title of my PhD was The Kids Trial. It was an online randomized trial that was co-created with 7 to 12-year-olds. So let's hope that all my animations work, because I'm a fan of them. Sorry, I like to walk around, so I'm going to there we go. There we go. All right, so I set out to help children understand how we do health research, and specifically how randomized controlled trials help us determine whether interventions are effective. We all hear lots of health claims every day. And in order to be able to trust those health claims or judge whether those health claims are trustworthy, we have to have a basic level of health literacy. Because RCTs are the best way to determine whether an intervention is effective, understanding some of their core principles adds to our health literacy. The problem is that most adults have a very limited understanding of trials, and children are rarely included in learning about them. So the Kids Trial aimed to address this gap by helping children understand what RCTs are, why they matter, and get them thinking critically about health claims they encounter in their own lives. Yes, sorry. We used a participatory, that's better, thank you. We used a participatory learning by doing approach to do this. So we invited children globally to co-create a randomized controlled trial with us online. We asked them to send in questions that they were interested in and vote on their favorite question. Then they could plan the trial, take part in the trial, and decide how we shared the results. They could take part in as few or as many steps of the Kids Trial as they wanted, because at its core, the Kids Trial was a citizen science project with an embedded RCT. Before we started, we wanted to make this relevant to children and families, so I formed 2 public and patient involvement groups that I called the CRAG and the PRAG. And my approach to working with these 2 groups was a rights-based approach. We worked with them using the Lundy model of child participation, and that's based in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, specifically Article 12. And that says that children have a right to express those views, and those views should be given due weight. And this was important, because our PPI members needed to be our research partners and not just collaborators or consultants. So there were 15 of them, children, 8 children and 7 either parents or in some cases caregivers, and they lived in 6 different countries. So I met with them online for about 18 months, and you can see here that most of our work that we did was before the Kids Trial actually began, which was in March 2024, and that makes sense. So what did they do? Well, they did a lot. I'm going to focus on 4 things here. They designed all of our logos and our icons. They also decided on the aesthetic identity or visual identity of our website. They refined and reviewed participant-facing materials like our consent and assent forms. So I'm talking about both the children and the parents here in all of these steps. They also refined and reviewed our transcripts for our animated videos. So I made 11 animated videos that you can find throughout the website. Not only did they help me with the language with those videos, but the children have narrated all of them. So before we get into the actual Kids Trial, I wanted to put up the timeline for one particular reason. You can see here each step opened one after the other, and each step was open for kind of a different amount of time. But the thing I want you to pay attention to here is that top blue bar, the pre-trial quiz. That was open for almost the entire duration of the Kids Trial. I haven't talked to you about it before. It was voluntary, just like every other step, but we encouraged every child to take part in it. This was simple questionnaire that had 3 questions on it that was meant to assess children's perceived understanding of clinical trials or randomized trials before they took part in the trial. So now we can open the trial, and we asked children to send in questions and vote for their favorite question. The question they chose was, does sleeping with a comfort item like a soft toy or a special blanket make a difference to how children sleep? So we called that the REST trial, the randomized evaluation of sleeping with a toy or a comfort item. Then we asked them to plan the trial. We gave them a couple of different options for outcomes. They chose their primary outcome being daytime sleepiness, or what you might refer to as sleep-related impairment. That was most important to them. The secondary outcome that mattered to them was overall sleep quality, or how you think you slept the whole time. They also decided what the two groups would do. The intervention group, or the try it out group, would sleep with the same comfort item every day for the 7 nights of their trial that they ran at home. They would start using that comfort item when they got ready for bed, and they would sleep in their usual bed every night. The wait and see group, or the control group, did everything exactly as they normally would, except they did not use a comfort item for the 7 nights that they ran their trial at home. So what happened? 139 children from 11 different countries joined the REST trial, but we wanted 292. So the trial was underpowered and our findings were inconclusive. We found no evidence, clinically meaningful evidence, of sleep-related impairment in either group, and although we had a small statistically significant improvement in overall sleep quality in the intervention group, in our primary analyses that disappeared when we did sensitivity analyses. But that's how it works. So then we asked them, how do we disseminate our findings? And they told me that they wanted an infographic and another video, so those now live on our website as well and our YouTube channel. But what I didn't tell you about that final survey is that we also wanted to evaluate the learning that they might have gotten through participating in the kids' trial. So we asked them those same simple 3 questions that we asked in the pre-trial quiz, except that there are only 20 respondents, so I'll talk about that in about 2 slides. So let's talk about recruitment to the kids' trial. From March 2024 to September 2025, I launched an extensive recruitment campaign that included both online and traditional recruitment methods. So obviously you can see there everything. I won't read it out to you. The 2 kind of more traditional or offline methods that we used were 1,500 or more than 1,500 physical flyers were actually distributed. And then I also did 2 national radio interviews. This resulted in 224 children from 15 countries taking part in at least 1 step of the kids' trial. But you can see there's a concentration there in 2 countries, Ireland and Kenya. So the kids' trial recruitment is a direct reflection of where we had what we called trusted intermediaries, or where I built partnerships with schools here in Ireland that were willing to distribute our recruitment materials. I nearly said martinis. And with 2 partners that I formed relationships with throughout the kids' trial in Kenya that brought our recruitment materials into the schools and into their communities. So if we take a step back and look at the participation patterns in the kids' trial, I want you to, this slide is going to have a lot of information on it, and I'm not going to go into all of it for the sake of time and everyone's sanity. But what I want you to understand about participation in the kids' trial is that it was episodic. It was not linear. This is a core characteristic of a citizen science study, and not necessarily, as most of you in this room would know, a randomized trial. So at the bottom, you can see the different combinations of surveys or steps that one child or more than one completed in the kids' trial. And at the top, it's how many. So, for example, 47 children took part in every step of the kids' trial except for sending in their question and how do we share the results. Those 6 children there that I've highlighted took part only in the last 3 steps. So they joined the trial, they sent in their results, and they told us how they want us to share those results. If we look at the individual steps, and I have survey up there because each step had its own survey, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. The first one is that 166 in the pre-trial quiz. That makes sense. It's not surprising. It was open for the duration of the entire kids trial project, and we encouraged every child who took part to take the pre-trial quiz. So then you see the next spike, 139. So this was during the actual REST trial, and this is where we spent the most amount of time, and it's also where we put the most amount of our resources. So again, not a big surprise. The thing that might be a little bit surprising, and certainly was a challenge, is that 20 in the final survey, 20 participants. Well, We wanted 292 participants in the REST trial. The REST trial originally was going to run for 6 months. We weren't reaching our target numbers, so we decided to extend by another 3 months because let's try and get there, right? Well, the trade-off for that is that that final survey was only open for 2 weeks. And that's probably, I have a couple other ideas, but that's probably the main reason why that survey only has 20 respondents. And so I think from a methodological point of view, that's the big insight here, is that this flexible design approach of a citizen science study likely increased accessibility and inclusivity to children. However, it challenged us in our ability to evaluate their learning. So what did we learn? Taking a rights-based approach to work with our PPI partners resulted in truly meaningful involvement from children and their parents throughout the research process. For an online, international, child-led RCT, trusted intermediaries were the successful method of recruitment, and we relied on them much more than online visibility alone. That voluntary participation likely increased inclusivity and accessibility, and we wanted that, but it challenged us as far as retention, continuity, and assessing learning. And then finally, feasibility. We were able to show that a fully online, child-led international RCT can uphold core trial principles in a methodologically rigorous fashion. So I'd like to thank both the funders and, of course, my primary supervisor, hiding in the back, Professor Declan Devan, and my 2 wonderful co-supervisors, Dr. Laura Flight and Dr. Nikki Totten. Thank you.